Okay, so you've seen us tour apartments before, and even though we did use a realtor to find those places to rent, sometimes we do also like to use online sites to browse potential future investment properties. Now, if you're like us, maybe you do this in your free time too, just to have a little bit of fun, or maybe you've actually used these sites before to find a place to live. And these sites include places like Realtor.com, Trulia, and Zillow, which is what we're gonna be focusing on today. Now, if you ever plan to either buy or even just rent your own home, and yes, that means I'm looking at all of you, this is gonna be really important information to know, so get ready. Now, Zillow is a website that lists homes for sale, or at least that's how they started out with their founders, Rich Barton and Spencer Rascoff. Then they were able to build it up into more of an online advertising business where they actually sold leads from data from their website to either real estate agents or landlords. And on top of that, and most notably for today, they also started a business called Zillow Offers, where they allow you to directly buy and sell homes on their own platform.
So how exactly does that work? Well, Zillow's been buying and selling property since 2018 using a process known as iBuying. It's basically an automated service where the seller, it could be me or you, inputs our information all about the property online, and then the company using an algorithm will review that information and get an offer to you as quickly as that same day. Now that's the part of the process that was automated, but the next steps weren't. So they still had to have physical people go out and do property inspections, check out the home, kind of doing the things that you have to do when you're selling your home. But because of that, that brought in this really big problem. We kind of talked about this in the Great Resignation video, you know, how many people were quitting their jobs, leading to historic labor shortages. And unfortunately, as of a couple months ago, Zillow just didn't have enough people to do those in-person inspections, which led to this huge backlog. Now, because of factors like this, Zillow altogether announced that they would be putting a pause on buying any homes in the US completely, at least for the time being. Now, this is a big deal with an even bigger impact. So to put things into perspective, Zillow Offers accounts for 50% of Zillow's top line revenue. They have been trying to grow this thing so rapidly that in Q2, they bought almost 4,000 homes. That's like 42 homes a day. Anyways, as you can imagine, when the news broke that they were having backlog issues, their stock took a really big hit 2 weeks ago, which is obviously really bad for the company overall.
Now, a few weeks after news of the backlog, it was actually released that most of the homes that Zillow had bought with the intention of flipping them, so obviously buying low and selling high, were actually worth less than the price that they had paid for them. AKA, they had overpaid and likely wouldn't be able to make a profit at all off of those homes. Now, to be a bit more specific, a company analyzed about 650 of Zillow's homes in their inventory, which is about a fifth of their total inventory right now, and found that of those 650 homes, 66% of them are currently listed under the purchase price. Now, let's remember how we said that they were growing rapidly. Yeah, even more so than we said before. It was actually released that in their third quarter, they ended up buying 9,680 homes, and then after selling about 3,030 of them, they actually had a loss of an average of $80,000 per home. Now, this is obviously a huge jump up in terms of their prior largest quarter, where they bought more houses than ever before by more than 3x, but at the same time, it was also a huge loss in revenue for them. Now, there's a lot of information you could dig into here, but a lot of it comes from Phoenix specifically, where 93% of the hundreds of homes that they bought were sold at a loss. Now, even more news came out today, the day that we're filming this video, November 3rd, that Zillow is actually completely closing down their iBuying business altogether after they now expect more than $550 million in losses on those homes that they purchased in the last 2 quarters that they now admit that they definitely overpaid for. Now, after hearing their CEO speak directly to the media about why they're closing down Zillow Offers, they blame a few different things, but most specifically their algorithm for being unable to accurately predict housing prices, which is obviously a vital part of that business. So before they completely close their doors, they're obviously going to want to sell that remaining inventory of 7,000 homes that they're holding right now, and they've said publicly that they aim to do so for about $2.8 billion. Something else interesting that we read is the industry calling into question whether Zillow really was just that bad at executing this arm of their business, or if they have some sort of data that suggests that iBuying in general is going to be hard for any company to execute over the next year or so. Now, this is interesting because there are some competitors to Zillow Offers, including ones like Opendoor, that have said that they're open for business and they're really trying to go after that piece of the market and become the new number one. The question really is, can they, or will the same thing ultimately happen to them too?
It'll definitely be interesting to follow Opendoor. They've actually been trying to capitalize on Zillow's downfall by saying that they're open for business, and they were actually buying up homes at a large scale as well. So in their Q2, they did almost 8,500 homes, which is crazy. Now, I think this is a really interesting peek into how dominating or not so dominating iBuying might be. If we look at these companies, they're basically trying to do with iBuying what Amazon did with pretty much everything they buy and sell online. It's interesting because there's clear concerns on how this big, massive process, automated process, could hurt overall home ownership. iBuyers, of course, claim that they're helping reduce the stress of the home selling process, and they do obviously offer convenience, right? Like, you don't have to go out and, put your house on the market, stage it, go through all the other necessary steps, right? You basically just throw it up online and you're good to go. But at the same time, with these large companies being in this space, it could lead to predatory behavior in the future. And I get it, right now they only account for 1% of the market, but once again, they grew from 0.2% of the market just in 2 years. I think an even bigger concern is that these companies could just offload all these homes onto Wall Street instead of selling them to regular individuals who actually need affordable housing. And you know what? That's exactly what Zillow's doing. Their plan is to offload 7,000 homes onto Wall Street as opposed to selling them back into the market. Overall, what does this mean for the market, and why is Zillow overbuying homes and not being able to sell them high? Well, the answer to that is that the housing market might be slowing down. So not decreasing, but definitely not growing as rapidly as it's been lately. Prices are still increasing, but not at the same rate. And that rate is what Zillow Offers was going off of.
Zillow themselves have actually stated that they don't expect a housing market correction to hit next year. And a quick FYI is that a correction is when there's a relatively minor drop in the market of about 10%, and it typically happens when the market's overvalued. They actually predict an 11.7% appreciation of US home values, which is a slowdown, but definitely not a drop. Now, because we're in Canada, what about the markets here? Well, the sentiment does seem to be the same, with growth slowing from the previous month for 4 straight months in a row now, and the former governor and the central bank dismissing the notion of any sort of big correction. So the last thing to really touch on is, should you be using the iBuying services? Now, the answer really does depend. It does seem like it could really provide a good consumer experience, especially if you're the seller. It's easier, it's convenient, and as long as you're getting a good price for your home, then it's definitely an option for you. However, one thing to note is that you might not be interested in the higher fees that come along typically when you get that convenience factor, and at the same time, you might not even be approved into the program if you're looking to sell your home because of these ongoing capacity restraints. Also, it might not even be that helpful altogether in these hot real estate markets if your home's likely to sell within a few weeks anyways.
All right, so to wrap this up, it sounds like Zillow's still gonna be around, just not flipping homes. I mean, even though this was a really big fail, they were still able to pull the plug quick enough and early enough to not hurt other parts of the business. Anyways, we hope that you guys enjoyed the video. We thought it would be fun and informative to touch on a hot topic that was in the news. So if you guys did enjoy, this style of content, let us know down in the comment box below. And as usual, if you haven't checked out any of our previous videos, make sure you check them out next door, and we will be back. You know the vibes. Let's go.